In this video, I will be going through one of the most flashiest monk build you can have inside the game. This is a CC build and I'm going to show what it does, what essences we need, what set items do we need, and what rotations you probably should be using to be successful with this build. Now, this build has one of the longest CC duration in the whole game, while also having CC immunities, pretty good damage, and the only problem with this build is that once you go in, you don't really have that many disengage tools, but otherwise this build is just perfect, and let's go check out what this build actually can do. And as you probably saw, this build has one of the longest CC duration you can actually have, at least as a monk. I would say it is rivaling even necromancers and blood knights, although the damage is not as huge as with some other builds, but I think this might even be better than the imprisoned fist in a current meta, although you can change something up to have a bit more defensive. But with this build, we are using Fist of Thunder, of course, because we usually start with this now that we have 30% damage reduction. Then we have Flying Kick, which is usually our first CC ability we will be using. Then we have a Shield of Zen that we usually have up 100% of the time if you have the Awakenings to reduce the cooldown of the Shield of Zen. But nevertheless, you should always have this on when you engage. Then we have our Flying Dragon with the chest piece. With this, as you could see on the clips, this one has a really long CC duration, and with the two casts, you can actually have abilities or primary attacks in between those casts to just give more damage while also having two times the duration of the CCs, because you have a knock up and then you have the damage part, while that damage part also gives them stun afterwards. So the CC duration on this ability is just insane, and we have two casts of these, which it's just insane. And then we have Wave Strike just to get that tiny bit more damage for this build, so we can most oftentimes just one combo to enemies. This is also gives us a long range knockback if we ever need it, and because it has 6 seconds cooldown, we can use this when we don't have anything up. So basically we can just use Flying Kick and Wave Strike when we don't have anything other up, just to have those CCs and still be able to fight even if we don't have the Flying Dragon up. So let's go over the proper combos you should be using with this build. And because Flying Dragon is pretty hard to hit alone because it has a wind up animation, you shouldn't be using that as your engage tool, although you sometimes use it and you will see me sometimes use it. But the proper combos would be first using Flying Kick to CC the target or Wave Strike to CC the target. Then you can follow up with the Flying Dragon so that it's guaranteed to hit the enemy. Now, you do not want to cast the second cast instantly. Instead, you want to either use Fist of Thunder to get some damage off or Wave Strike to get some damage off. Now, after you do that, you will use the second cast before it's too late, so you get the second cast off. Now, once you get down, you either use Wave Strike or another Flying Dragon. If you don't have Wave Strike, you use Flying Dragon. If you have Wave Strike, I would recommend using the Wave Strike and then followed up with another Flying Dragon. And once again, now that you knock them up, you will not instantly use the second cast. Instead, you do some damage on them. Of course, there is one exception. If there's a lot of enemies around you, you just want to get the CCs off and you don't want to stay there attacking, because that's when you get CC'd instead. And once you use the last one, you will reset your Flying Kick's CC duration on that particular enemy, and you can use that once again, and that's the full. Now on the essences, we're using Unyielding Doctrine, so we have that 10% chance to get 50% attack speed for 1 second while we are using our primary attacks. This is just to get a bit more damage. With Flying Kick, we are using Spokes of the Wheel just to proc Vitus, and getting that 10% damage increase is also nice. Now we are also using Divine Burden. If we have enemies close to the wall, we can now even further the CC duration to 3.2 seconds, although inside PvP this is halved, so it is only 1.6 seconds duration. If you feel like you need a bit more damage to the shield, you can use the shield variation of the shoulders in here if you feel like you need that. That is optional, you can use that too. Now with the Wave Strike, we are of course using the Will Below, so we get the ranged Kamehameha out of this and the knockback, and 6 seconds cooldown on this one. Now to the important part, now the new pants will give you 1 extra charge to your Flying Dragon and also 3.6 seconds cooldown reduction. So the Noble's Path that will give us the knock up in the first cast, and then we can use it another time to just go in there, keep them in the air and do the damage, and once we get down it will also CC them with the stun effect, although the stun effect doesn't last that long, so you need to start using another CCs right after this one. But just alone this, you have about 4 seconds CCs if you wait the whole duration, so you don't just spam it instantly, you just weave something in between the knock up and the dash ability. And this way you have almost 10 seconds of CCs with this build, and it's really insane. I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end because you can just go make coffee and come back and you are still CC'd. But let's go on the set items. Now on the set items, we are using 4 pieces of Vitus. Once again 2 pieces just for the Shield of Zen duration, so we can have 100% uptime, or at least close to 100% uptime. Now with the 4 piece, we are getting 30% attack speed that will increase our ability cast times, and it will also increase our primary attack speed, which is really good with the Unyielding Doctrine, so we can have more often this proccing. And then we have 80% attack speed, which is just basically 80% damage increase with our primary attacks, and we are going to use primary attacks quite often with this build, so that is a must have. Now you have 2 options for the 2 other pieces. You can go with the Mountebanks set to get 20% chance to get 13% of your maximum life as a shield, and this will go on top of your Shield of Zen, which makes you a lot tankier. So I personally prefer this, so I get less CCs and I will stay alive more often. But the other option also will be Gloomgood's Prize, because we have dashes. Once again, we have 2 dashes, or actually 3 dashes. We have 1 from the Flying Kick, and because we usually start with that, we will have this on usually always. And Noble piece makes Flying Dragon also a dash ability, so there's another dash, and Shield of Zen will also give you this. So basically you either choose between 15% damage increase or just a more tankiness. And well, I personally like Mountebanks because we get the shield, and because I'm most often just using the restoration stance to get 20% increased shields from Shield of Zen and from Mountebanks, making our CC immunity last a lot longer. But this is personal preference, you can use either one. Now let's go on the Paragon trees, and we are of course activating Gladiator, because the cheat dead CC immunity is just that great. Other ones are nice to have, these are not necessary, but these are pretty nice to have anyways. Reduced loss of control is really nice, so your slow effects aren't that great and you get out of CCs more often. With the rapid recovery, we get 20-second cooldown for a CC immunity, which is really great also, but the most important part here is cheat. That if you want, you could use Executioner, but personally I just don't like this so much because I like to have the cheat death on. When I finally fail and go down, it usually saves my life. Sometimes I do die even if I have the cheat death, and then it would be better to have the Executioner on, but personally I just like the Gladiator more. Now what do we choose inside here? I still just take every damage, every life node, and then I usually start taking armor penetration. And when I have armor penetration, damage and life from every single one of these, then I will start to take armor. And once the armor is done, I will suggest going for resistance. But some likes to not take the life and go for armor and armor penetration instead and just max out the damage. You can do that as well, but as I'm using mountebanks and I just like the shields, and because I'm using the mountebanks, I kinda need the extra shield to have a bit bigger shield from the mountebanks, so that's why I'm taking all the life nodes. And of course armor penetration, because armor penetration just gives us a bit more damage. I do still have some resistance here, even though I think I don't have maxed out all the armor nodes yet, but you get the point. Now on the cursed set, I used to use nettled because I use the mountebanks and I have shields on basically all the time. And this will just increase our damage output while we have the shields, but it only triggers every 30 seconds if you have 6 pieces, which is not that great. So the other option could be tortured, which is also pretty good because we have so many dashes, but in all honestly, it might be worth it to just not roll anything so you don't get the debuff from the curses. But that's everything for the build. If you enjoy the build, or if you want to see more content like this, I will be coming up with a PvE builds in the near future for the Monk class. And if you want to see other classes, please let me know down on the comment section what classes you would like to see me play. And I will catch you on the next one.